This video is over Unit 9, Human Systems, Learning Targets 1 through 4. Today we're going to be talking about just a basic introduction to human systems and some of the different things going on there. So first, talk about the levels of organization are found in humans. Beginning with the smallest, cells are the basic unit of life, and they represent the smallest living thing in humans. A cell can live by itself, but it becomes more complete in its function as they are grouped together. And groups of cells that are found together, working together, are called tissues. And here is a picture of, looks like cardiac muscle tissue or smooth muscle tissue. And this tissue is working towards one particular function, whether it be muscle tissue or nervous tissue, and we'll talk about those different kinds of tissues in a moment. An organ is a group of tissues working together, and an organ, one particular organ, can have several functions. I want you to notice here that there are several different tissue types located in this one organ. You have muscle and connective and nervous and epithelial all together. We'll talk about those just a second. But an organ represents lots of different kinds of tissue working together for a specific set of functions, whether it be digestion or whatever. And then lastly, you have organ systems. An organ system obviously is several organs working together to perform a set of tasks. A digestive system, for instance, which you see a picture of here, all of these organs work together in order to digest food. That is their function. Some of these organs serve functions in other systems as well, but in the digestive system, they have a particular function. And so those are the levels of organization: cells, tissues, organs, and then organ systems. All right. We're going to go ahead and define blood and talk about blood, because blood obviously is important for every human system, because humans do not exist without blood. And what is blood? Blood is a connective tissue that carries oxygen and nutrients into the body and carries waste out of the body. Waste is filtered out in the kidneys or taken out of the lungs via CO2. But blood is not simply just this random liquid, but it is made up of 4 separate parts. It is a suspension of 4 separate parts, and one of those parts is red blood cells. And the red blood cells' job is to carry oxygen. Red blood cells have a protein in them called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin has iron in it, and that iron carries oxygen with it. That's why red blood cells are red. Next is the plasma of the blood, and the plasma is the liquid portion of the blood, and it, along with carrying all the pieces of blood, carries different things in it. Your bloodstream ends up being a transport system for lots of different things, and the plasma serves as a vehicle for transport for many things. The white blood cells represent the immune system, and they serve to get rid of infections. They serve to heal the body and take out different structures, like any kind of pathogen or any kind of foreign substance in the blood or in the body. Your white blood cells can take out those things. And then lastly, the platelets are a clotting factor in blood, and they're present. You can see they're kind of like pieces of cells. They're not necessarily like a whole cell, and they are the clotting factor. And so if you get a cut, the platelets will actually cause that clot to occur, along with some other proteins. Platelets are also called thrombocytes, which isn't that important, but some people have a disorder that keeps their blood from clotting, and that thrombocytes is part of that disorder name, and so it may be a familiar thing for some of you. So there are four basic tissue types found in humans: connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. And these four tissue types are found in every organ in your body. They're not they're dependent on one another, so they're not independent, but they do have specific functions, and so we'll look at those now. Connective tissue pretty much does what it says. It connects things, and it connects things in different ways. And so here is a good picture representing several different kinds of connective tissue. You see here bone. Bone obviously supports the body, and so one of the roles of connective tissue is to support. You see that also here with cartilage as well, serving a very similar function. This is a picture of a knee, and you can see bone and cartilage are working together here. Also, you have some loose connective tissue, and the loose connective tissue represents viscera and some different, maybe the tissue that's surrounding the muscles, whereas your fibrous connective tissue, this is going to be things like your tendons and your ligaments. And blood is also a connective tissue because it serves to connect the rest of the body. And then fat tissue, also called adipose tissue, supports the body as well and has an important function in storage of nutrients. So to sum connective tissue up, it's just essentially connecting and supporting the body, keeping the body going. Muscular tissue. Muscular tissue moves things. It moves your bones. It moves things through your body, whether it be blood or food or whatever. Moves it through your body. It moves by contracting, by becoming smaller. These muscle cells, this represents skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is a kind of muscle tissue, and essentially what happens is each one of these cells, you can see these are all individual cells here, these lines, and what happens is you can see the little bars. Those bars just get closer together, and if you have a bone connected on this end and on this end, those two bones get closer together. They contract. It causes those two muscles or those two bones to move. Like when you bend your arm towards your body, your muscle has to contract in order to do that. In order to straighten your arm back out, something else has to contract on the other side. Smooth muscle tissue serves a similar function, but smooth muscle tissue is found in your blood vessels. It is found in your digestive tissue linings. And its purpose is to move things through the body as well. However, with smooth muscle tissue, you don't have to think about it. It is called involuntary. It is involuntary, meaning when you swallow food, your esophagus, which is lined with smooth muscle tissue, will naturally push that food down towards your stomach. All right, and your stomach will naturally churn that food up using its own muscle tissues, its own smooth muscle tissues. So smooth muscle tissue is involuntary, but it still is moving things. And last is a special kind of muscle tissue called cardiac muscle tissue, and it is found in one place, in the heart. And cardiac muscle tissue obviously serves to contract the heart, which pushes blood through your body. So those are the three kinds of muscle tissue. Nervous tissue, its role is to send signals throughout the body, particularly one kind of signal, electrical signals, from your brain to your spinal cord to the rest of your body, or from your body to your spinal cord to your brain. These electrical signals are obviously the way that we do everything. Your body does not know what to do without your brain sending signals via nervous tissue to the rest of the body. And epithelial tissue is the lining of things. It serves to line things, protect things in the body. Your skin is an example of epithelial tissue. It lines the outside of your body. There is epithelial tissue lining the insides of your organs, the outsides of your organs, the insides of your blood vessels, and outsides of your blood vessels. So you get the point. Epithelial tissue is a covering, and so it does what coverings do. It protects. However, it also serves a role to absorb nutrients, say for instance in your small intestines, where when you digest food, the small intestine has to absorb all of those nutrients, and so epithelial cells are there to do that. And so they're doing a great deal of fusion. Different kinds of epithelial tissues that we're going to talk about. There is squamous tissue. Squamous just means flat, and this is your skin. You have stratified squamous, and stratified is just a fancy word for layers. And you can see the different layers there of the skin. This is a good cross section here of your epidermis, which we'll talk about when we get to the integumentary system. But you can see the layers of flat skin cells, squamous skin cells. And then here is just simple, which means simple means one. So there's just a single layer. Here you have cuboidal cells, and cuboidal cells usually support. And so like back here on the squamous, you see here at the bottom, these cuboidal cells at the bottom are supporting. So very similar. You can have stratified cuboidal, or as in this picture here, simple cuboidal. And then last, columnar. And columnar are usually in just one layer, but I guess you could have stratified columnar as well. But columnar cells, because of their great surface area, usually serve to absorb different materials, whether it be in your small intestine or your kidneys or different places. Columnar cells are used primarily for absorption. So those are the four tissue types and their brief definitions. Now, quickly, none of this makes sense unless you are able to put it all together. So here's a picture of an arm. And how does the arm work? Well, if you touch a hot stove, the signal of hot goes from your finger to your brain. Your finger is unable to make a decision about it. However, there is nervous tissue located there on your finger, and it is able to respond, sending that message directly to your brain. Now, in the epithelial tissue of your fingers is where all of those nerves are found. And that message goes to your brain. Your brain says, move your hand. And in order to move your hand, several things have to occur. Well, first of all, that message is sent to all of your muscles, and that elicits a response to jerk your hand back up. Your muscles could not do anything unless they were supported, or unless they had something to attach to, and they attach to bones and cartilage, which are part of your connective tissue. All right, and then later, when you have a nice burn on your finger, your epithelial tissue, which you can see up here, will repair those injured cells by replicating. Down here represent a group of cells known as stem cells, and they will replicate in order to replace those damaged cells. And so that's one example. Another example of how tissues all work together for one purpose would be like, say, your stomach. You swallow food at lunch today, and your brain says, or your stomach says, there's food here. It sends that message to your brain. Your brain says, okay, digest it, and sends that message back to the stomach. And the stomach then releases juices and different things to digest that. It releases those chemicals through the epithelial cells, and the muscle cells in the stomach then basically act like a washing machine, churning that food up and wrestling it around until it is all digested. And then the connective tissue is what is keeping all of those different tissues intact. It's the reason that the stomach doesn't just kind of fall apart. And it's also the reason that the stomach stays where it's at, as opposed to, once it gets full, hanging down in your stomach, in your midsection. It stays in place because it is supported by different connective tissues. So those are a couple of examples. You could come up with many more, but those are a couple of examples of how each of these different tissue types work together to do each function in the body.